party.
Well, that was Rick Bratton, Senator Rick Bratton, after yesterday on the floor of the Missouri Senate.
How do you really feel, Senator?
Yeah, let us know.
Woo! Saying that they have no backbone, people bantering in the back of the chamber, and the blood of the innocent lives is on their hands. Whoa! Well, welcome into Wake Up Mid-Missouri. Well, it's over, I guess, now, since Mary Elizabeth Coleman sent the initiative petition reform to conference committee, and I guess it's dead. Well, I'm Randy Tobler. There's producer Hannah, and there's John Marsh. John, sounds like the IP is dead again this year.
Well, never say never until it all wraps up. But time is a-wasting, that's for sure. 6 p.m. Friday deadline at the State House.
Woo! Yes,
50-hour filibuster broke the record. They said earlier in the week of 41 hours.
Yeah, don't tell me that there's not competition among egos that has nothing to do with the policy. It's all about personal egos down there.
Politicians would never.
Never what?
Would never have an ego.
Yeah, right. Just like they'd never spin a little tall tale here or there.
Yeah, never.
Well, you know, I know a politician who I just don't know is capable of spinning a tall tale. Her name's Cindy O'Loughlin. At least my personal interactions with Cindy have been nothing but above board and of the highest integrity. When we were working together during COVID, she as the senator in the area, in my northeast area there, working with me in healthcare issues. And we'll see what she has to say at 8:35, because she'll be with us to talk about it. See if she thinks there's any way that this can make it across the finish line. And I guess we need to ask her, do you really, really, really want it to happen or not? I was frustrated and asked Senator Fitzwater yesterday. I mean, again, I'd like to know what his colleague, Senator Brown out of Rolla, is thinking when he says it really wasn't a personal priority for him. Well, maybe that's sort of hedging the rhetoric, right, John? It's not a personal priority. Might be my constituents, but not a personal priority. I didn't say it wasn't a priority. You know, I don't know. Zola Heck from Inside Columbia, one of the co-editors there, is going to join us at 7:35-ish, and talking about the new issue. I just love that magazine, so I always, we can unpack a few of the things in there, and little appetizers for those of you who may subscribe and haven't. Well, I guess you've already received your issue. Came out in May, early May, and so we'll talk with her about that, and then Steve Bucci is going to join us as well. Steve will be at 8:10. Why? Because there's national security issues going on. Apparently, Joe Biden's administration did send $1 billion worth of arms to Israel after they said they weren't. But was it a different plan, a different program? Who knows? And then Blinken and nodding off into foreign policy neverland. Tony Blinken playing guitar over in Ukraine. So maybe Steve could help us with that. And did you see about the shooting of this the Slovakian prime minister?
Wasn't that a weird deal?
Right out there in broad daylight, outside of, I guess, either the headquarters or whatever, but on the street, on the sidewalk, 5 shots. And there were Twitter posts that said, pray for him. It looks life-threatening. Well, then it appears he's going to survive. And there's some speculation it may have been because he's a hard right guy, and he was rejecting the World Health Organization, trying to have, take over, jurisdiction over sovereignty over healthcare decisions. And he said, our country will have none of it. So what's going on in the world? I don't know. People are crazy.
Yeah, that's one of those deals. What, he had like 5 hours of surgery?
Yeah. I mean, and you see that on the post that I saw, a standby cell phone video showed people just cradling this guy in their arms, and you heard police sirens. Are quite dramatic. I mean, it's just unbelievable. I don't know. Anyone who throws their hat in the political ring these days gets kudos from me just for having the courage to do so. There are so many whack jobs that are just unhinged out there,
It's just like under the sun. This is kind of the same deal in the same neck of the woods that started World War I.
Isn't it funny, John? I was thinking that very thing last evening when I saw that. I thought, wasn't it some kind of Eastern European? What happened? You have Prince Ferdinand, or I forget the details, but
yeah, Gavrilo Princip was the activist shooter, and the rest was history on that one.
Mm-hmm. And then how many tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands, millions of lives, I guess, were lost in that.
Yeah,
crazy. I don't know. So we got a lot to talk about, and the pushback. So I do want to talk about my daughter, I guess, who didn't get a chance to listen to the show yesterday, at least when we talked about it. But remember, we played some sound from Harrison Butker, the kicker of the Kansas City Chiefs.
Man, you want to talk about someone catching a lot of heat online right now.
Boy, I heard there's tens of thousands of appeals to the Chiefs to fire him. And just because he expressed his faith in a commencement address and pointed out Joe Biden's hypocrisy. How delusional is it? He said. I'm paraphrasing. Do we have that sound? We'll pull it up. How delusional is it to claim that you're a Catholic and then go out and give the sign of the cross on a pro-abortion, Father, Son, and Holy Ghost over your chest on a pro-abortion rally? I just thought, holy cow, man, this was dramatic stuff. So Brian, did you see that the pushback on Harrison Butker?
I did, and Toriano Porter had an interesting column in the Kansas City Star. I've seen people on both sides. Toriano Porter, basically in his column, you can read it in the Kansas City Star. He basically said he has always said let athletes be able to speak their minds, except in this case. And
Why?
And he didn't like the message.
Oh,
and
he's
getting just ripped by readers for basically being a hypocrite.
So
that's what they're saying.
So if an athlete drinks the progressive Kool-Aid and spews that from the podium, that's okay. Let him speak. But in this case, not so much.
Yeah, I mean, again, it's one of those things that it didn't. I saw it when it originally happened, and I kind of, it took the media national media a little bit of time to get this story. But I mean, I remember it was being tweeted out by conservative outlets over the weekend. I believe it was on Saturday or Sunday. But, ultimately it's up to the Chiefs. The Chiefs make that determination. It's not the piece. A lot of these fans are from, not necessarily even from the Kansas City area that are signing this. Now, apparently Pete Mundo, who, Pete Mundo from radio station in Kansas City, he tweeted last night that the city of Kansas City apparently put out that this Butker guy doesn't live in Kansas City. He lives in Lee Summit. Apparently they deleted that tweet. I don't know if people saw that or not, but he was talking about that. But there are people that are upset with Butker. There is no question about it. He is taking criticism, but he's also taking praise. Again, it just depends on who you talk to. But there are several thousands that have signed, apparently, this petition.
Oh, he'd be snatched up in a minute if they fired him. He's a good kicker.
Well, and I think that, at least in my social media feeds, the thing that folks are upset about isn't necessarily his comments about the administration or anything like that. It's his comments about women is what I seem to see people up in arms about.
What comments?
In his speech, he talks about how there's a portion of his speech where he goes, and now I'm going to talk to the women in the crowd. And I know lots of you are probably looking forward to getting married and having kids. Mm-hmm. And he talks about how, for women, like a vocation or aspiration can be, staying home, having babies. Yeah.
Well, he used the word homemaker. It is something like it's one of the noblest professions around, or what a noble pursuit it is. And I think it has been diminished, And
they're trying to spin it as he's telling the women in the audience that that's all that they can aspire to be. I don't think that's what he meant.
Barbara Bush, essentially, now, of course, she phrased it much differently, but Barbara Bush essentially said very similar things about the importance of motherhood. It's just, I think what Hannah's getting at is they take exception to the way he phrased it, but it is, it is interesting to, say.
I think the word homemaker is a really probably the best way to put it. I mean, that's the same as saying I'm a company leader. I am a homemaker. Running a home these days in the 21st century is like being the head of a small business. I mean, and a not so small business, even though there may only be 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 members or 6 or depending how many kids. It is a 24/7 task, and you're on call all the time. You have to wear many hats. Who better to wear those hats than, sorry guys, but women are better multitaskers. It's the most multitasking job I know of. There may be others that are more multitasking, but it's arguably a very competency-wise takes multitasking. And it's been diminished. I mean, remember when Hillary Clinton back in the 90s said, all those women that are home baking chocolate, baking cookies? Oh, boy, did she catch some heck for that. Yeah, those cookies feed the 5th grade party that teaches the kids about, socialization and celebrates their graduation. Those cookies are the things that when the kid's crying because they scraped their knee out on the pavement, that mom gives them a big hug, and those cookies are part of that hug. Don't talk to me about cookies, Hillary Clinton. I'm getting worked up. Hillary Clinton, I tell you, that is one vile woman. I'm sorry, I got on this.
My take on the whole Harrison Butker thing is, it's like, okay, he's an athlete. He's a devout Catholic, makes no bones about it. He made the comments at Benedictine College, a Catholic college.
Yeah, right. He wasn't at UC Irvine,
Kansas side. Yeah. You want to complain about things? Let's go back to the days of Colin Kaepernick taking a knee and all that kind of stuff. I mean, I don't think he had 130-some points last season, did he?
Point. It is interesting, and I'd be curious on the text line or call line, 573-874-9390. I'm sure. I think that's the biggest thing I want to see is what people are saying on the text line about it. Take everything away that he said and take all the politics about it. I do want to make one important point. Forget all the other stuff about the politics, but when I was growing up, Randy, in the 1970s, yes, most mothers at that time stayed home with the kids. My own mother did. Virtually all the mothers in my neighborhood did. And I know the times have changed, everything else, but the biggest thing, in addition to social changes, is a one-person household in those days. They were a lot of union jobs in those days, a lot more than there are now. I guarantee you that, folks. They were especially the trade unions. But all the auto plants in St. Louis, they had 4 of them going. The Corvette plant was still going in North St. Louis. You could make a living and do well on one income, and that has changed. So, but I don't see anybody that are upset about the people upset with the speech haven't pointed that out about right. You can't. I don't think they like his tone. Is my gut feeling. That's my gut feeling.
Yeah, they may be
too religious,
right? And transferring their angst over his political comments about Joe Biden and sort of conflating those with the cultural comments.
Yeah, that also got
and how you look at it one way or another, the election. That Trump trial with the Michael Cohen, we hope, wrap up of the cross-examination today as Michael Cohen, the convicted felon for lying to Congress, he wraps it up, and we'll see what the defense pounces on today. A little sidebar on that, Robert Costello, who was an informal advisor to him, an attorney, had a powerful testimony yesterday in the Judiciary Committee, and basically saying, as he said, well, last year, this is not the first time he said it, but he said it in testimony yesterday, that Cohen owned this thing totally. He conceived of the plan to squash the Stormy Daniels news and did it to protect his boss because he wanted to be attorney general. And despite, Robert Costello saying, asking him over and over again, have you checked this out? And basically telling him to watch it, he continued to do it and owned it and said that Trump had nothing to do with it. Now, the question is, will they call Robert Costello to the witness stand, the defense, to further impeach Michael Cohen's credibility? We'll have to see. I don't know. I've heard legal experts say it's dangerous whenever you call anyone to the witness stand, even if you think they're going to be on your side. They may go bonkers on you and say something you didn't know. So, I don't know. John, what do you think? Call Costello or not?
I don't know. I know we heard from some of the analysts after yesterday's testimony that the attorneys and Mr. Blanche at the head of them for Trump are going to really zero in on questioning Cohen's memory, the conversations he had with Donald Trump, because Trump says, this is just stuff this guy's pulled out of his hat.
In the written testimony, he said he decided he would take care of this himself. When I asked him if Trump had anything to do, he said no. I mean, I think, I don't know, this is just such a circus, and that the circus music in the background makes perfect sense. Yesterday, we heard this in the morning.
Donald Trump lost 2 debates to me in 2020. And since then, he hadn't shown up for debate. Now he's acting like he wants to debate me again. Well, make my day, pal. I'll even do it twice. So let's pick the dates, Donald. I hear you're free on Wednesdays.
And at least thus far, it appears as though that the Biden campaign is having their way with the rules of this engagement. One in June on CNN, one in August, in September on ABC. And there won't be any, no crowd. At least that's the way it looks now. No crowd.
Folks were quick to point out that in that 14-second video of the president, there were 5 cuts.
Oh, 5. I counted 7, but there were a lot of jump cuts there. Yeah. And those are like when producer Hannah has to splice things together.
Yeah.
What, he couldn't even get out a cogent 14 seconds without them having to record it over and over and over again? Holy cow, that's a little bit on what's going on in the D.C. rundown. Be back in a minute.
Has America been fair to Donald Trump? The people always know what's going on. I don't think the president knows how everybody is living right now, so
is our text conversations.
I thought you were going to say your daily cuties and string cheese.
I love the cuties or the halos or whatever is on sale. Buy a little bag of them every week or so. And you know what I like? They're very appealing.
Oh, okay.
Because you can peel them easily. I like that. I don't like to fight to eat a piece of fruit because, fruit's good for you, but you don't want to fight to eat it, so it's good. It's good. And anyway, I like those. But I love these text conversations or the phone calls, 573-874-9390, because we hear so many different opinions, even though I think the large tent of conservatism, which largely defines the audience, there are some others that like to peek into the tent of righteousness that we call conservatism.
The tent of righteousness.
The tent of righteousness. That's sort of my version of Fawn's stein of knowledge. This is the tent of righteousness.
You don't want the progressive camel getting his nose under the tent of conservatism, though, do you?
No, we have to watch that because you know how camels smell. they can stink up a room, and so you get too much progressivism here. That's as bad as getting the stench of D.C. or
kind of like emotional support goats. Right?
That's right. But you can cuddle a goat. You can't cuddle a camel. You can. Lynn, we were talking about about staying at home and how Butker got in trouble. But was some on the left who said, "Oh, what are you doing? You stay in your lane. Stay to kicking. Get rid of him. Kick out the bum." Someone says, if you know the Hunts and Andy Reid, Darren says, if you know the Hunts and Andy Reid, Butker ain't going anywhere.
Especially Coach Reid. His son kind of recently went through some pretty serious legal stuff.
Yeah. And got off with a light slap on the wrist, really, Lynn says, I love what he said. I stayed home with my kids, felt it was the most important thing, and we made sacrifices to do it. You never get that time back. Tomorrow, my daughters are going to hang out with us. Now,
I'm so excited because you are in trouble.
Well, I have an ulterior motive here. No, it's not an ulterior motive here.
You are, John, he is in so much trouble.
I think all the guys could be in trouble tomorrow, to be real honest about it.
Well, I'm fascinated by young conservatives because they would both, Shannon and Sammy, I know they would call themselves essentially in the conservative tent of righteousness. However, they have disparate views culturally. Shannon would fairly align with Lynn. I love what he said, stayed home with my kids, and she's a military wife and makes a lot of sacrifice, I know, for the kids. Sammy, on the other hand, has a different feeling about, parenthood and stuff. Now, there's some new news out of that camp as well. So, So I don't know. I'm just going to leave it open to them to discuss some of these cultural issues as we flow through these. Why is this as important? Because I think the two daughters and my son, who's not able to do it, but I think he'd be interesting. And I hope you will maybe involve some of your adult children in some of the conversations we have. Have them tune into the show. Have them weigh in on the issues. And because they are the next generation of vote. Well, they are the new generation of voters, and more their voice is being heard in our elections at all levels. And I think it's fair to say that young people these days that would be fiscally conservative are very often much more socially liberal.
Or
right, Hannah?
Yes, or kind of in that libertarian camp.
Mm-hmm. So it's very interesting. So we'll see how that goes. They're gonna hang out with us tomorrow. Now,
do I need to wheel in the popcorn machine, or you think they'll be good?
Could get interesting.
No, sister showdown, smackdown.
No. They are the BFF of BFFs. They are just really just tight as a drum in terms of almost co-counselors, whatever, which is, I think, the best way that you want SIBs to be. They're all that way. All the SIBs are that way.
Well, and I am just hoping that they can embarrass you a little bit. That's what I'm hoping for. Mm-hmm.
Told you. Mm-hmm. I am the keeper of the tent of righteousness. Therefore,
oh boy,
the girls are going to come in and pull up a few tent pegs tomorrow. I'm afraid.
Yeah.
All right. Hey, can we talk about Peter Navarro just a bit? Peter Navarro wrote an op-ed in the Washington Times that is fascinating. Now, he was sentenced to 4 months in federal prison for refusing to appear before the Congress to give testimony and produce documents. Right? He was subpoenaed about the J6 attack, and he said, no, there's a separation of powers here. I was protected under that doctrine, and I'm not going to appear. And I think out of principle, he landed in prison. So he writes an interesting op-ed in the Washington Times about how, well, it's titled, "The Bureau of Prisons Thumbs Its Nose at Congress and Taxpayers." And now you could say, well, he's just grinding an axe, but he says the failure of the Bureau of Prisons to implement 2 major federal laws about sentence reductions for nonviolent and first-time offenders cost taxpayers billions of dollars and increases recidivism and crime. And he goes on to really do an eloquent explanation of how just by simply moving these nonviolent criminals, this was a matter of principle. He stood by his principle, and he goes to prison for 4 months. One thing they could do is take these kind of people and put them in halfway houses. And rather than costing $60K a year, which is what inmate costs are, you could really reduce that probably by half by going to halfway houses. And I think it really speaks to more of the corruption of our justice system, more of the inertia. He says a lot of his fellow inmates that are in similar circumstances don't even know about their ability to have sentence reduction or, over sentencing and to challenge that and getting out a little earlier. Brian's talked about it. What is there, an 80% rule that you can get out after you've served 80% of your time? I mean, that's probably a different rule.
Sounds about right.
Mm-hmm.
Mandatory minimums. Oh, and then he talks about the RICO wing of the Department of Justice. I mean, think about this racketeering charge that down in Fani Willis. Now, that's not a federal charge, but sort of the abuse of the RICO statutes, those racketeering, those were, John, didn't those originate really sort of about gangsters and about hard crime when there's conspiracy for either violent crime or, things like, gangs and stuff like that, right? Not the way it's being used in the Trump trials.
Yeah, it was initially what they call the Racketeer Influenced and Corrupt Organizations Act, is I think what RICO stands for. And it was directed at La Cosa Nostra and organized crime across the boards.
And you think about how they used that with Michael Flynn. Remember, because he had conversations with his counterpart in Russia, being part of the incoming administration. Hey, we may lift some of the thing. We may not put those missiles in Eastern Europe if you'll do such and such. Just having discussions. And he was accused, and they used these kinds of things. And then they brought his family into it, and they threatened his family. He lost his family. He could have lost his family to prison. Cost him millions of dollars to defend himself. It ruined his life. And Navarro's saying there's an overuse of this. And why? He says because prosecutors have aspirations. I mean, as much as I like Eric Schmidt, I mean, come on, attorney generals don't have some political aspirations. Josh Hawley, right? And I'm not impugning that, but they have some political ambitions. And he claims that often they will, well, look at Alvin Bragg and Fani Willis. They campaigned on prosecuting Trump.
Well, you want to talk about RICO? How about Rudy Giuliani?
Oh,
made his bones with RICO.
Yeah. I don't know, man. It's just, I think more and more people feel as though they can't trust their Department of Justice to truly keep the blindfold on Lady Justice. I don't think Lady Justice has a blindfold anymore in this country. Do you? 573-874-9390. Tell me if I'm overthinking this, but I don't know. You look at what's going on with Donald Trump and now, Navarro 4 months in prison because he wouldn't answer a subpoena under what on the surface seems like a legitimate beef. It's like, no, I was working with the president. I was what was he? The foreign, what was he? He had to do with foreign trade, the trade secretary, right? And so, and then they put it, when they remember they got him at the airport, they put him in handcuffs and ankle irons, for crying out loud.
And the cameras were there.
Yeah, and you've seen these videos, Hannah, where these J6ers, some guy who shouldn't have been in the Capitol, let's just concede that, they show up at his house. You've seen this with like 6 armed FBI agents. You know, you'd think that they were going after some guerrilla gun runner from Costa Rica. and this is some guy with his wife there. Kids are terrified. They just finished their Fruit Loops or their waffle, put their maple syrup on, and here they're busting down the door, taking the guy away like he's some kind of a violent criminal. I don't
How about
get it.
spin it back to last summer when we saw the same exact thing as the agents came to the door and arrested on RICO charges none other than Rudy Giuliani.
Yes.
So he kind of, ended up getting leveraged by what he'd leveraged against the bad guys.
Yeah. I don't know. I think the whole notion of our Constitution is that we have a broad slate of rights, and the Constitution is there to protect those rights from invasion by the government. And whether it's on the taxation, the federal income tax is an invasion. I think it's a violation of the Takings Amendment. We talked about that yesterday with Zach Smith. How they can just arbitrarily just take your stuff. How about when they come in and they take the stuff that they think you may have gotten illegally, and they just come and take it without any due process? Hello?
There it is.
Am I wrong?
No, I mean, we talked about that a little bit with our guest yesterday about the whole kind of angle and how that sort of parallels with the eminent domain kind of thing.
Yeah, it's very troubling. You know, there's laws that say they one of my daughters is dealing with that, and I don't think she can talk about it on air, but there's a dispute going on, and some personally that she has with some land, and people want access on her land, and she looked it up. Apparently, in an eminent domain situation type of deal, the government only has to give you like 110% or there's some limit on what they give you of the market value. What's that all about?
Yeah, eminent domain, especially for farmers, folks who own a lot of land.
Yeah.
Pretty big thing. I know right now I'm Facebook friends with someone who lives in the state of Iowa, and they've been fighting some eminent domain legislation there. The government's trying to, use ID to put the big wind turbine things on farmers' land.
Yeah, the wind farms kind of
the
thing.
wind farms.
I thought that they made pretty good hay. They made bank on that when they do that. But I thought it was the farmer's right to do it or not.
Well, if the
been
government
the whole debate in Callaway County when they've been debating this whole solar farm thing
That's
up
right.
there. Yeah, it's like, you could stand if you enter into a 40 or 50 year lease, you could make some pretty good dough, but your descendants are stuck with the deal.
Yeah, I don't know, sort of like timeshares. what is there now, less than 36 hours of time left. And who knows if it's going to go anywhere. We've had a couple texters say good riddance. Others say, what's wrong with the GOP? Why can't they push this thing through? Nationally, Michael Cohen heads back to the New York courtroom with Donald Trump there as well. Who knows he'll bring with him to support him in the light of some testimony yesterday that a former advisor to Cohen says Cohen cannot tell the truth about this issue. Cohen owned it. Trump had nothing to do with it. We'll see where that goes. And then there's this debate. Some saying, the Wall Street Journal says, well, it could work out well for Trump, even though they say he lost both debates against Biden because he was too bellicose. He interrupted him too much. He was too boisterous. And the new rules with their mics are going to be shut off when the other person has permission to talk, saying that might benefit Trump.
Speaking of mics turned off, it would help if I turned mine on.
Yeah.
I've seen a list of demands, I guess, but I haven't been able to fact check if those were true. Because I also heard that one of the stipulations was that RFK was not allowed to be on the stage. And he put on Twitter that he was excited to announce that he met the qualifications to be on the debate stage.
By the Commission on Presidential Debates. And they are side-skirting that. They are end-arounding and going direct to the networks.
So I got duped.
Yeah, and they don't have to abide by those rules. And I think I don't blame each campaign for not wanting the distraction of RFK. RFK's a loon. I mean, he talked about having worms eating his brain. He probably had some parasitic cysts in his brain. Very often they don't cause any problems. Sometimes they can cause some seizures and serious problems. But I mean, it's not like a worm is crawling its way like in The Wrath of Khan, Ricardo Montalban. Remember when the worm crawled
dropping it in Chekhov's ear.
Yeah.
But no, I actually think that muting microphones when the other person is speaking is something we should have been doing a long time ago.
I agree.
Well, one-sided CNN's Chris Wallace piped up, and we remember how he kind of played to the other side when he moderated the previous debates. He says no audience will be a cleaner experience.
Yeah.
Well, I remember watching Trump's debate performances in the previous two elections, and everyone's like, "Oh my gosh, he's so good at debating people." Like, he just interrupts them and yells and talks over them, and to me, that's not a sign of a good debater.
Yeah, this might actually help him and invoke some restraint that he's not capable of himself.
Yeah.
Just some self-discipline there. If he would just stand by and let Feeble Joe
That's all
be
he
Feeble
needs to
Joe.
do.
Yeah.
All he needs to do is let Biden keep talking.
Although if they pump Biden up with a little EpiPen and some vitamins right before, you never know.
I also saw that they need to do drug
about
one of the unnamed national security agencies.
one of the the busiest people I know, Stephanie Bell. She's out. She'll be back on Monday.
And I know we joke, but Stephanie is out of town a lot, but 98% of the time it's for work.
Yeah, right.
For her real job. So I know we give her a lot of grief for taking, luxury vacations all the time, but that's really not what she's doing.
Yeah. But she does.
Mr. Taxman, are you listening?
She wisely, though, does take advantage of wherever she's at and learns about the culture and really dives into it, whether it's dining or whatever. So that's great. Did she ever come down on one side of the fence as to whether the tower of tater chips or the pillar of pretzel was her favorite? Or I guess she
was
liked
very
it all.
firmly in the team of both.
Both, yeah, right. Yeah, it's all good.
Her Branson excursion.
That's right.
Wondering.
She put something online with like, which is which, which is better. All right. So, once in a while you get a little behind the scenes clip of something that happens. And, we talk about making movies in Missouri and bringing the movie industry here. Weren't there something about tax credits, And so we caught a little bit of a clip of an audition where a director was trying to tell a potential actress, an aspiring actress, to read the script and just come back with some sarcasm. Be sarcastic. It required a sarcastic tone. And here's what it sounded like.
Hey, Chad, are you there?
Hey, yeah, I'm here. What's up?
Hey, let's have some fun. I'd like you to be super sarcastic. Everything you say from now on is just going to be dripping in sarcasm. How does that sound?
Oh, that sounds just amazing. Being sarcastic all the time isn't exhausting or anything. I'm so excited for this. Nope, the sarcasm. Let's get this party started, or whatever.
Now.
Interesting.
Now, I lied. Because that could have
Randall,
been. That could have been.
You lied?
But I came clean with the lie, unlike Michael Cohen and others. No, I set that up just to try to make the point. How many of you thought that was actually what I described it as? An actress being sarcastic on the request of a director. What that actually was the latest chatbot, GPT-4, looks like a little O. I don't know. It looks like 4 with a little letter O. And what's unique about this AI device is that it can have emotion. And that was actually GPT doing that. Yeah.
4.0.
Let's listen to this again.
Hey, Chad, are you there?
Hey, chat, are you there?
Hey, yeah, I'm here. What's up?
Hey, let's have some fun. I'd like you to be super sarcastic. Everything you say from now on is just going to be dripping in sarcasm. How does that sound?
Oh, that sounds just amazing. Being sarcastic all the time isn't exhausting or anything. I'm so excited for this. Nope, the sarcasm. Let's get this party started, or whatever.
Now, I play this because you can laugh at this and say, wow.
It's creepy is what it is.
It is, man. I'm telling you. Think about the application of this to so many domains in your life. Think about this. And what is this going to do to employment? What is this going to do to our workspace? What is it going to do to, well, let's bring it into this program. When we play something for you that we think is real, we've already seen that they can basically generate likenesses of politicians, of other celebrities.
Like deep fakes?
Deep fakes. Well, now, what if you put this new dimension of reality emotion into it? And emotive AI is what this is. I mean, I'm just jaw-droppingly amazed at this in one way and frightened in another. Brian, John, I want each of you to comment. What does this do to news reporting?
News reporting needs to be news reporting. And AI, I mean, I'm not a fan of it. I mean, if people want to use it for their own stuff, I mean, you need to go out and get the story like you always have. And if you go get your own stuff and, or work with our news partner KMIZ when need be, I mean, you shouldn't have anything to worry about. I guess there are certain ways people think that this would improve things, but
no, I think it threatens it. I mean,
I
think about
don't like it.
John, let me ask you this. Let's say you do a phone interview with someone today. You call Senator XYZ and, hey, what really came down behind the scenes? What did you think of Rick Bratton's outburst? Senator Fitzwater and who's in the background? Fitzwater and Keogh? No, Koenig. We're in the background sort of talking about how the Cardinals did last night or something. It was interesting that if you look at the video, while Bratton, we'll play the Bratton sound for you. He went ballistic on this whole deal.
He's pretty upset.
But and then you ask someone over the phone for a statement. How do you know they didn't turn on their chat AI and said, hey, give John the answer that is politically correct for my run for U.S. Senator? I mean, think about it. How do you know unless you're looking at the person or you're in the courtroom? I know, Brian, you were in the courtroom for this
murder case.
For this murder case where the guy threw the gal over the homeless person over the rail.
Allegedly.
Allegedly. Okay, allegedly. Okay, I get it. That's what you got to say. I
do because he hasn't been convicted yet.
I know. Okay.
We got to let John answer his question.
So, John, what do you say? What would you do, brother?
Well, like Brian said, the presumption is on our behalf, if we call the senator's office and his handlers put us through to him, the presumption is on our end, that's exactly who we're talking to. If they try to pass off some, Chat GPT 4.0 as their responder to us, man, when we get wind of that, that's not on them. That's not on us.
So it's interesting. I brought this up because I had a questionnaire from the Med-Mal company that insures us, and they're always informing you on risk mitigation, like, one of the biggest mistakes you can make is not informing a patient of a bad mammogram or a bad colonoscopy, and then they have cancer. Obviously that's a problem. So, things like that. It was a questionnaire like, what are you doing with AI? I said, I am doing absolutely nothing with AI. It scares the devil out of me because who owns I'm still responsible for some other programmer's version of me or of my judgment? Really?
Well, I would add this. I think John brings up a very good point. I mean, we know, with few exceptions, we know almost all the lawmakers or city council members in Columbia or Jefferson City or the sheriff. I mean, we know who we're talking to. I don't think they'd be doing anything like that. They're going to want to give us that. They're not going to want to. First of all, they wouldn't do it, and they don't want to risk it anyway. If they would, something would be wrong. We would probably notice it anyway. But I just don't. I think my fear would be that not anything they would do or we would do.
Right.
Any news reporter that puts a product out, if it could be altered later by someone else, for a soundbite to make them say something they didn't.
AI editing.
That's right. Yeah. Or that would be
technology is there, and boy, it's seamless.
Yeah, I mean,
man,
the Taylor Swift thing that gets a lot of coverage. Obviously, that was fake, but I mean, it was clearly altered. But I mean, it's just that would be my worry. But I still think news, it's just it hasn't changed any bit. In terms of the way we should cover it.
There's a question out of ABC News. Will AI replace doctors who read X-rays, radiologists, or just make them better than ever? There's some data out there that suggests the AI is already used in pap smears to screen the slides that normally people would look at, and you can improve the diagnostic accuracy. That's been shown with an assist, using it as a tool. They're talking in some case. There are advocates, of course, advocates at the who is it? This guy that says people have these vested interests. Ronald Summers, a radiologist, says, I think we should be doing them now. AI researcher at the National Institutes of Health. Well, that's his gig, right? I mean, but so they've been using.
Well, look at radiologists, Randy. You can relate. And my wife worked in radiology for a number of years. They were some of the very first folks to embrace the remote technology of being able to read a film from their office in their basement.
And more than 75% of AI algorithms are used in radiology to aid radiologists. But there's a controversy developing. Could it replace the radiologist? Or would it just be, does the radiologist become nothing more than an editor, just sort of like a rubber stamper who says, yeah, it looks good to me. I agree.
Well, and I think that this could continue to be a fear for just about any profession that you can think
than
of.
A vocation.
Right, as we go along, because it's only going to get better, right? It's already gotten better just in the last year from where it started out.
Think about it. If you're an architect and I want to buy a house, maybe I just say, hey, I like Hannah's house. I was over there for a party the other day, and man, I like everything except I'd like to have the mudroom on the other side and a 3-car garage. Could you please reproduce Hannah's house for me and make the plans? Bingo, done.
Yeah.
Are you just trying to point out the fact that I don't own a home? Is that
You're the one that pointed it out. You're the one that pointed it out.
You don't want a replica of my rental, I promise.
No, but you see what I mean, how this can really pervasively threaten so many professions. It actually makes an argument for us to be very, very supportive of our vocational institutions like Lintech and like MACC
Rankin,
and others, Rankin down in Ashland, because, man, makes you want to get trained to do a Mike Rowe gig, right?
Well, in Moberly Area Community College, we should include them as well.
I said MACC.
MACC, exactly.
Yeah.
We obviously a big deal, but no, I think in terms of, let's just pick one story. Just pick one of all the stories, and it could be the filibuster. I'm just going to pick this bridge murder case in Columbia. I don't want AI reporting on how's that going to work? I mean, no one can explain it to me how that would work, how AI would report it, and it would be accurate. And if it weren't, it's just, no. This is, I know how it would work. I don't like it.
There are AI companies that are using Google Glasses in the exam room with a microphone to record and then do an AI transcription for the doctor to put it on the medical record. Now, some of us could argue, I could see like, wow, that would allow me to spend more time talking with the patient, thinking about the problem, educating them, and I could edit the note rather than me having to click it out. Or
Is that AI, though, or is that just voice transcription?
Yeah, but no, because you have to synthesize what was seen and what was, you'd obviously say, oh, I hear a murmur in Brian's chest.
What's to stop the AI reporter from doing the same thing with the court documents and creating
where I'm going is that
news story.
put your digital voice recorder turn it on and go out and have a smoke and drink a Coke and eat a hamburger at Golden Corral and come back and there's your story.
No, that's not the way to do it.
I know it isn't, but that's the threat.
I understand, but that is absolutely unacceptable. And if
John,
I'd love to go to Golden Corral, but I'm not going to. My job is to be in court. Yeah. My job is to get it right, and I'm not going to rely on some AI. I mean, that's just absolutely ridiculous.
Yeah. Okay, well, we saw what happened to radio stations north of us in Moberly, right? Replaced by some
doing it at 7:25, but that's fine.
Well, you've just wasted 20 seconds complaining about that.
No, Randy, I know that you like to poo-poo all over social media.
No, I don't.
And every issue that society has always circles back to social media and the devil that it is.
Well, it is a technical worm eating our brains alive, but go ahead.
Well, this is an example of how social media can do good in the world.
Oh, I'm ready.
Okay. A lost family heirloom that was a giant, and I'm talking like a big wall hanging, that was done by an uncle a couple generations ago. It's a big hand-carved wooden leopard.
Wow.
Like sitting on a tree branch.
Now, that's a cool item.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very valuable as a family heirloom, knowing that an uncle carved it by hand. It was lost after a lady passed away and her house went up for auction, all the things inside it. Carving was lost for many years.
Yeah.
A lady, so then we're now, let's see, that's the third generation, gets on social media and starts describing what this carving looks like. And the state of Vermont is where she lived, and it blew up. Everyone was sharing it, and it found its way to someone who goes, that looks and sounds an awful lot like this carving that we have that we bought at an estate sale several years ago. So they are reunited.
Oh.
The power of social media, like for good.
And the rest of the story is the family that bought it at the estate sale gave it back to him for a king's ransom.
Well, it doesn't say that.
A pound of flesh for
it
him.
doesn't,
No,
it doesn't say that, but you hear stories all the time of people being reunited with valuables that they thought were lost forever.
Yeah, yeah.
And then the Chinese Communist Party came in and sampled everybody's DNA from it.
Okay. And then there's John.
You know what, though? People are so good. One-on-one and small groups of people helping one another. They're so good. And that when social media facilitates those interactions, I'm all for it. I'm all for it. It's good.
So what I'm hearing you say is that social media is not all bad.
Like AI, like legislatures, like government, like doctors, like producers, like police officers.
Now you're sucking up.
Everything's not all bad or all good, right? But
Notice he didn't say attorneys, Steph.
Man.
So I don't know. That's my wife. In the previous segment, I described the goodness of people and how wonderful people are to one another, and how my wife recruited a couple of guys in the area of I think it was the produce section of one of the local stores. Because
Where else would Helene be in a grocery store?
Right. I mean, I have to drag her kicking and screaming we get her into a grocery store in the produce section. It's all over, especially around the kale. Keep her away from the kale. And she lost an earring, and she called me, and I couldn't answer it. And later on, I found the story. Anyway, she lost an earring. A couple of guys saw her crawling around on the floor looking for the earring. They helped her, and then crawled around on the floor looking for earrings. But she later found it in her pocket. Now, Clay, being the smart aleck he is, I wonder if Clay is that Clay smart aleck AI deep fake Clay? No.
Could be.
Am I to understand, he says, that some random stranger was digging through Randy's wife's pockets? No. That's not the case.
That would be the government who would do that.
That's right. Let's get that clear. Well, welcome into the show, Zola Heck, who's a oops, I got to get you there. Wait a minute, I got to get the right deal. Are you on now? Yeah, there you go.
Nope.
No.
Hello?
There
we are.
Good job, Randy. Gold star.
Look, it's like you've done it before.
Yeah, once or twice.
Yeah.
Okay, so, and Zola is the co-editor of Inside Columbia. And when you talk about exploring a great publication, you should explore Inside Columbia. It comes out bi-monthly, right?
Bi-monthly, yes.
And it is a beautiful thing. I mean,
thank you.
You know, Missouri Conservationist is a very lauded, iconic magazine in Missouri. I would say the same thing of this publication.
Oh, wow. Well, thank you so much. Yeah, our May issue just came out, so thank you, first of all, for having me on, and our May-June issue, I should say. There is lots to unpack in this issue. It is the perfect guide for, ending the spring, diving into summer, so I don't know where we want to begin with it, but there's just lots and lots of lovely things, including food art, to where to go in the lakes in Columbia, because we have so many wonderful lakes here in Columbia. And then we have a gardening guide. We also have a guide to garden with your grandkids. I mean, truly, anything you want to do here in Columbia, this issue is for you.
So if you're watching on YouTube or Facebook, or do we do Twitter?
Like as a show? No.
But visually, right? Facebook and YouTube.
Yeah.
So here you are. That's what it looks like. And the title says Taste of Art. Local chefs create amazing visuals. Now, you might know my wife's a culinary person. And she loves to say that you eat with your eyes.
Yeah.
And we do. I mean, there's something beautiful about a wonderful plate of food that then tastes wonderfully. And I mean, the great work. Did LG take these pictures?
Of course.
Our great LG.
Our lovely LG.
I mean, our LG makes Ansel Adams look like Randy with a camera. I mean, he's awesome.
He is, yeah.
And the pictures are it makes you want to just go to every one of these chefs' restaurants and give it a try.
Yeah, definitely. The cool thing is like you almost look at it and you kind of don't realize it's food, and you're like, oh my gosh, it looks like a gallery the way our wonderful art director Tim Flanner laid this out. It just looks like a lovely gallery, and then you're like, wait a minute, why do I want to eat this? Yeah. Oh, because it's food.
and so in this issue, there's the food art, basically.
Yep.
You have other artistic pursuits in there, right?
Yep, we do. We have all kinds of stuff.
And I like the Roots and Shoots. Here's an article, Roots and Shoots, a green thumb guide for flower and vegetable gardens.
Yeah.
That's a fun thing. And a related article about grandmas and grandkids, right?
Exactly. So if you're just starting your own garden, or if you're wanting to do it as a family, the Roots and Shoots one, that's one our other co-editor Jordan Durham did, and of course our photos by LG. Just like a lovely guide to getting started, getting your hands in the dirt, and then if you're wanting to kind of involve your family a little bit, that's when you can go to the other article by Kimberly Blaker, where you kind of dig into doing it with your grandkids, or even maybe your own kids if they're young.
I am constantly told by people, well, and I don't know, Zola, you're of the younger generation. Are you millennial or are you a Gen Z?
We're like right on the cusp. We're actually the year where we have like no one wants us.
And recently,
Wait, I thought that was Gen X.
Oh, maybe that's what it is. I'm not sure. Yeah, they're like millennials don't want us, and the Gen Z, I don't know. So.
And you you were married recently, right? Within the last year?
Yeah, within the last year.
Just
coming up on a year.
Right. Now, a lot of, like, I know Hannah lives on the digital world, right? And I know, but yet you publish a physical magazine.
Yeah.
Do you know how many people just crave to read a book. I have a Kindle, but it always runs out of
the
power
same.
because I just never use it.
Yeah,
I love a book. I love a magazine. I want to hold it.
Yeah, I do too. And it's actually when I started working here, it was like the most satisfying thing to have your work be something you can hold, because I came from kind of a digital world before this. And so having something that you can like look at and look through, it's just so satisfying to like hold your final product and be like, wow, look what we did. So that's really, really, really fun.
Well, and if you're not following Inside Columbia Magazine on social media, they're always posting really fun behind the scenes stuff. They do videos of some of the on-air staff in the office that are pretty entertaining. Like I know right now you guys are, it was a mini golf competition. Is that what it was?
Yeah, we had Carson and Trevor from Y107 and then KCMQ. We set up like a mini golf course throughout the office, and it was just extremely entertaining. And just posted the video on Facebook if you want to take a look. But that was a ball. And then we just actually, I guess I shouldn't spoil the next one. You'll have to stay tuned for our July-August issue of the next one. Where,
what a tease!
Yeah.
And
it's really good.
I will brag. And was it the last issue where
you won?
I kicked Brian Hansen's butt.
You sure did.
In the DJ.
That was like a mini game competition.
Yeah, I mean, I hate to say it. I mean, it was just brutal. I mean, it was brutal.
I recently beat Cousin Andy in a contest as well.
Yeah, you did.
The Eagle is just absolutely dominating these competitions.
I'm just
we
saying.
like to win, Zola.
You know you are in the tent of conservative righteousness here. You know that. So
I do.
mean, okay. All right, join that's Zola Heck, and she's a good sport, having fun with us. She's a co-editor of Inside Columbia, just out with the Taste of Art. That's the May-June issue of Inside Columbia magazine.
Zola, a lot of our Wake Up Mid-Missouri listeners might remember you from your time over at our news partner at ABC 17, especially I think all the stories you did in the height of the pandemic and all that. Yeah. How did you make the translation from the broadcast side to the print side?
Yeah, well, they probably do recognize me because my first name is kind of unique. So I was a Crowder back then, but now I'm still Crowder, always. But Heck now. So if you do recognize me, thank you. But yeah, the transition was interesting. Like, it's definitely a different world doing, writing the story and getting to use like visuals to tell your story. But something I've really enjoyed with, magazine is just having to kind of rely on the word to like show what you're meaning. Obviously LG's wonderful pictures, of course. But it's just been a wonderful journey to explore this different side of journalism. I love both worlds, and they just both have their fun aspects, and then radio just gets to combine it all. So it's just one big fun like journalistic journey.
We've been talking about AI.
Yep.
And the threat to various professions, radiologists, reporters, writers. Man, you can tell. The one or two times I've used it, I just played with it and said, "Hey, do a commercial for whatever." Just picked it randomly, and it was interesting how it came out. I mean, I had to do a ton of editing to make it work, and I'm not going to use it again for that because it just doesn't. It's not me.
Yeah.
But I could see how, as it evolves, it could be a threat. How is it going to be a tool or a threat?
Currently,
or both.
It could end up being a threat, but I see it more as a tool. Like currently there's ways that I do incorporate it into a way where like to kind of stir my brain up if I'm having some writer's block or something like that, then I kind of use it to, I'm having that right now, like, jumble the words up and find something to help me write my story. And I can find it really helpful, but it is kind of scary to not know like where it's going to go. But for now, I will say it's a lovely tool, and I hope it doesn't take over everything.
Are you worried that there could be? There's people that sort of are doomsday sayers, that more on the national security level, or that like all the movies over the years, that the
2012 was the end, right?
Yeah, right. That maybe AI gets smarter than we are in terms of sinister smarts.
Right. I think the thing that we have on our side is like, while yes, it's getting smarter, we still have to be the ones to like, hey, we need this from you. Like you would still need to tell it, I need this commercial from this source, So I feel like we still have to guide it in a way where like we would need to be there on the back end of it, but I don't know.
As long as the programming remains the cage and the leash, right?
Yeah.
But if it starts controlling the cage and the key to the cage, that's what scares me.
Wow, it's getting deep. Real quick, I did want to mention, I don't know how much time we have, but I did want to mention one story in here. So we do like a fashion section in each issue, and this time we got to interview a wonderful, wonderful Columbia native. Her name is Ann Stone. Madeline Jones, our graphic designer, interviewed her, and she is a Columbia native who now works with Michael Kors in New York, and she is involved in the Met Gala, which just happened, and she designs dresses and styles for the actual Met Gala that you saw celebrities wearing.
Well, Randy might not have seen it, but I know what you're talking
okay, there
about.
we go.
What do you mean? I was asked to headline the event next year.
Oh, I knew it. Oh.
Somebody stole this bath towel as a dress idea.
That's amazing. But yeah, you can go through this issue and see some of her sketches from last year. And then she, on her own Instagram, she just posted her sketches from this year and the dresses that the celebrities were wearing. So this is someone who went to Columbia High Schools, Columbia Schools, and now is a successful New York fashion designer. So just a really, really cool story that we got to highlight. And that's a big thanks to Madeline Jones, who grew up with her. So
yeah, this community is a culturally very rich community. Oh, yeah. Culturally. And it's a beautiful thing. Yeah. So, look, if you're an insider with this woman, right? What's her name again?
Ann Stone is her name. Personally, I am not, but Madeline Jones, our graphic designer, she grew up with her and, I think cheered with her. So we had that inside look at her, and then now she's just doing amazing things. So.
We'll have Madeline give her my number in case she wants some real fashion tips from the GQ standpoint.
Right.
I'd be happy to
look at the
free
time.
of charge. Not a problem.
Of course.
promotions. On Saturday in the 8th inning, the marketing team in Seattle let 75 hot dogs fly from the upper deck as Belinda Carlisle's Heaven is a Place on Earth played throughout the ballpark. Fans chased them down, fought over them like foul balls, incorporating food into the ballpark promotions. Nothing new, as we know. Nothing new. Most famously, the Philly Fanatic has long fired Frankfurters from his hot dog launcher at the Phillies games. But now they had to test how hard to throw the dogs at the Mariners Stadium, how the 40-inch parachute would carry if the wind was blowing, which way to throw the hot dog to avoid running into the net, and how to ensure the hot dogs were still hot when they got to the folks. They say next time they're going to send 100 hot dogs skydiving, and says even the big boys in the front office want to go out and throw the dogs now. Maybe it's time to combine the dogs from heaven with the rally sausage for the Twins. They can have something going there. And yes, we did a deep dive on this one. The rally sausage did make it into Canada for the Toronto series.
Yeah.
Now you know the rest of that story. We're not saying how it got there.
So
Had a picture of it sitting on the railing at the CNN.
Oh, my goodness.
would the hot dogs falling from the sky be unsolicited hot dogs?
Could be.
So they're now launching hot dogs rather than like towels?
Unsolicited wieners.
They're letting the Philly Fanatic do the thing with the launcher. These guys are just going up to the upper deck and putting them on a parachute and throwing them down to the folks in the cheap seats.
That's fun, though.
The CPI numbers were out the other day, and the Frankfurters, so I guess that includes the large tent of all kinds of hot dogs, right? And bratwurst and everything. 7.1% year over year. It's gone up. And that's a staple in a lot of kids, lunch boxes. And, this summer, who's not going to eat hot dogs? I just don't know why would hot dogs be going up at a rate of 7% a year?
Well, because hot dogs price point is still going up too, but go price top end beef or something like that. You'll know why people are eating so many hot dogs, probably.
But, so it's a demand thing created on the beef roasts up 10%. Holy cow.
Listen, this is a hot take, okay?
Yeah.
But hot dogs cut up in macaroni and cheese is still one of, the best culinary dishes
It's kind of an American
ever invented.
Flyover country staple, isn't it?
A little bit of ketchup on top. Man, that is gourmet cooking.
How about for our Randy and Meyer, beans and weenies?
Oh, nothing like that. You got to have some hot dogs with your baked beans. Absolutely.
Sometimes if we're feeling real fancy, we'll do kielbasa instead of hot dog. Just to,
fancy.
Be just a little more adulty.
Pigs in blankets, right?
Oh.
Wow.
That was my favorite growing up. I haven't had that in forever.
Go to the ball game, spend $40 on a ticket, and get a free hot dog. There you go.
Yeah.
My phone's blowing up. My wife's saying, "What are you saying? Culinary delight."
Helene, come on. I'm telling you.
No.
Okay, hot dogs and kale. How's that?
Oh, yeah. Why would you want to ruin a good all-American food with kale? She made a wonderful dish. You know what? There's a magic secret she uses when she uses vegetables that most people would go, at. She had some, a bunch of leftover vegetables laying around in the, stuff that needed to be eaten. And if she puts balsamic vinegar on them, it's the sweetness of that vinegar. It imparts a wonderful thing. So for those of you who are having a problem,
there you go.
It makes vegetables taste sweet. You've got a sweet tooth, right, Anna? Try that.
Yeah, sometimes.
Try some balsamic vinegar on your veggies next time. You'll like it. Your broccoli, especially cauliflower, which tastes like what?
Farts.
Oh.
And
Don't
broccoli.
microwave it so long.
Yeah.
Oh, man. No,
Man, the big boss had to microwave a little pre-made meal that included salmon and broccoli.
Oh, yeah.
Which
our national security. And we talk with expert Stephen Bucci, who is a national security expert, cyber military special ops guy, retired Army colonel with heritage, and really appreciate your expertise. Thanks for coming into the program, Steve.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me on the show.
You know, I want to talk about Ukraine, where we're at, what's really going on there, who's winning, are we just throwing good money and after bad war, and also Israel and Hamas with some revised casualty numbers, which I find interesting. But first, some news yesterday, the Slovakian prime minister assassination attempt. I guess he's going to survive, but a quite dramatic video that was making its way across the Twitter sphere. Any thoughts about that? We were talking earlier on the program about, reminds us of World War I and Ferdinand and the shooting and how that triggered something. I hope we're not going there with this event.
Yeah, I don't think we are. It is an interesting connection, though. But this is, there's a lot of radical elements, radical religiously, radical politically, radical just mental health-wise, all over the world. And another reminder that, if bad people want to do bad things, they're going to find a way to do it. In this case, the guy was using a knife. I mean, you don't usually go after a head of state with a knife, but you can protect people, but it's difficult when you want to have any openness and any contact with your populace at all. So it's a very tough thing to defend against. I don't think this will have massive political implications outside of Slovakia, but it's something to watch.
Well, he was pretty right-leaning and was against the World Health Organization, providing diktats for, health decisions. And it's funny how it seems across the landscape of the political world in every country these days. It's just, if I don't like the way you think, if I don't like your political ideology, I think I'll get violent. I mean, we've seen it on our campuses, with the Palestinian-Israeli deal. But let's go to Ukraine. Now, you think about, wow, the Secretary of State heading overseas, a foreign battle zone. And then we heard this from Winken, Nod, and Blinken. Rockin' to the free world. And Tony Blinken, this seems out of place. Does this have any place in diplomatic relationships that are going on?
No, it doesn't. Not when you're in the midst of a serious situation. The country Ukraine is invaded by Russia, and we're having this enormous international debate as to should we support Ukraine at all? If we do, how do we do it? How much do we do it? How long do we do it? And Blinken goes over there and takes the opportunity to return to his youth and, play in a rock band. I mean, come on. This administration already has lost pretty much all of the gravitas of the leaders of the United States of America on the world stage. And then Blinken goes over there and just adds to it that loss by acting like a fool. I mean, did he have a couple of shots of tequila first?
I mean, can you believe that? He's supposed to be talking with them about aid and about what's going on, Steve. What positive comes out of this in terms of defending Ukraine? I don't understand.
It was misplaced. It was silly and vacuous. And sadly, it's kind of a great meme of the foreign policy of this particular administration. They're not serious. The world doesn't take them seriously. And it was an embarrassment to Blinken himself, to the Department of State, and to the United States of America. He should make an apology to our country for that behavior. It was inappropriate and ill-timed and, frankly, just stupid.
I don't know. My jaw dropped when I heard this, and there's so much to say. We're talking with Steve Bucci, who is with Heritage and our national security expert here on Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Colonel, you talked about the thing in Slovakia with the prime minister there, and you served in the Balkans and all. What about the Biden administration holding back on the shipment of munitions to the Israelis?
That is a really stupid thing to do. First of all, in the same week, they announced that they were going to hold back those munitions from Israel. Biden signs a waiver to allow military aid and money to go to Lebanon and Qatar. And the week before that, they sent more to Iran. What kind of message does that send when those three countries are at least, semi-hostile to us? Iran, massively hostile to us. Lebanon's a puppet of Iran. And we give them stuff, and then we withhold it from Israel, who, by the way, is defending themselves against a terrorist organization on their border that has attacked them and has said repeatedly they will continue to attack them. Why in the world would this administration hold back from them in this situation? It's got to be baffling to our enemies. I mean, maybe that's what Biden's trying to do. He's trying to be so silly that he confuses everybody, but I think he's just silly.
Colonel, we appreciate you joining us live. Congressman Mark Alford, who represents a big chunk of our listening area on both of our stations, and he also represents Whiteman Air Base in Knob-Noster. He and another congressman have basically launched, and this is pretty unique. You just don't hear a whole lot about bipartisan stuff anymore on Capitol Hill, but they call it the Bipartisan Long Range Strike Caucus. And his co-chair is, and I don't know the name that well, Salud Carbajal, who's from the state of California, but this involves future U.S. bomber capabilities as well as current capabilities. Have you heard anything on that?
It is a useful effort. It's a couple of people across across the partisan lines who recognize that maintaining America's capability to have a long-range strike force is critical to our national defense. It's not something to be bellicose. It's to defend ourselves and to deter our enemies, and it's something that should not be held hostage to partisan views or disagreements. So good on your representative and his partners there. This is something to support our bomber capability. It also has relevance to our missile capabilities. It goes across services, so it's not just the Air Force. It also includes capabilities that are resident in the Navy. Mm-hmm. So a huge positive thing that your representatives are trying to do. So good on them.
Steve, we've been talking a little bit about AI this morning and its impact on professions and on, our whole world. I mean, what can you believe and what can't you believe with, deep fakes and now emotive AI? We played something where it sounded all the world like a sarcastic response to a command to just act sarcastic. And my God, it sounded like a real human being talking. You're a cybersecurity expert. I'm reading a story that, and it sort of this dovetails into what I'm going to go into. The UN has revised the Gaza death toll, almost 50% less women and children killed than previously reported. But in this world of what do you believe, who can you believe, I'm not sure that's not 75% less, 90% less. When it comes to the national security issues that we're talking about, death tolls, military capabilities, where is Iran's nuclear capability? How is one to know any more what to believe other than ask Stephen Bucci? But we only talk to you every couple of weeks.
One of the keys is you've got to apply common sense. Some people are saying, wait a minute, we're talking AI here. Look, AI has changed the reality of intelligence gathering, of intelligence assessment, and that's here. It's not going to go away. This means it's more important for us to use our brains in evaluating the sources of that information. In this case, the figures that the UN has been using came from Hamas. Hamas is not exactly known for telling the truth about anything. Darn sure not telling the truth about anything that would in any way make Israel look like the bad guys. Why anyone would think that those numbers were valid, including the UN. Why would the UN even bother to use those numbers at all when it's been shown that its own employees in that area tend to wear two hats?
Yeah.
They work for the UN and get a UN salary, and they're also working for Hamas, in some cases working for Hamas as leadership of their military wing. And then you hear afterwards, once it dies down, well, that report was discredited. No, that report was not discredited. It's just been ignored by the mainstream press. So it's incumbent on us to evaluate where the information is coming from. And in this case, if it's coming from Hamas, it isn't worth the paper it's printed on or the digits that it's producing. You need to keep that big box of salt to throw in there, with everything they say. But there's the left doesn't want to do that. They like those numbers. It appeals and supports their narrative. So they demand that everybody accept it and act accordingly. No, we're not going to believe it. If it doesn't make sense, we shouldn't believe it. Look, Israel has taken more steps to protect against unnecessary civilian casualties than any military in the history of war, to include the United States military.
Wow.
In not just in World War II when it was an all-out war, but in the global war on terror, when we fought in Fallujah, when we fought in Mosul, the percentage of casualties, civilian casualties that were produced were higher in those two battles in Iraq than what has been produced in Gaza, percentage-wise. So we need to stop throwing rocks. Biden doesn't have any authority or any factual basis to withhold things from Israel and to claim that they are, doing genocide. That is nonsense. And, the hearings they're having in the UN now, that is just complete political theater. And Netanyahu and Israel should say, yeah, thank you for your interest in our security, but we got it, and we're going to keep doing what we believe is in Israel's interest, not what you guys define as that, and just continue with what they're doing until Hamas is neutralized to the point where they're no longer a threat to the Israeli people.
All right, that record highs, above 5,300 for the S&P, the Dow above 40,000. Stephanie would have loved to report that. She's not here today, but she'll be back on Monday. And I know she really follows that S&P even more than the Dow because it represents a broader brushstroke. And she's right. The Dow is now just a few big, gold chip stocks, really. Oil is up again this morning. It's interesting. It was sort of drifting down. Now it's up again. Maybe that means on the heels of the CPI coming in better than the previous one, but still inflation up 3.4% year over year. Those numbers came out yesterday. The futures are still holding above 40,000 for the Dow and above 5,300 for the S&P this morning. Basically unchanged, just a little bit down. We'll see what happens in the markets as the trial in Trump land goes on up in New York City. Well, it's not Trump land. It's a Trump trial up in anti-Trump land. And we'll see whether the defense wraps up its cross-examination or not. Walmart earnings beat as the discounter wins over more high-income shoppers and e-commerce sales jump. So even Walmart's getting into the e-commerce debate. Does that mean Amazon's going to have some serious competition? I don't know. We'll have to see. I don't know if anyone's going to ever overcome Amazon's dominion on that. Do you think, John?
Boy, never say never on one of those. I mean, we've seen so many of the retailers go that way, and that sure can put a spin on it, isn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I'm glad to see some competition in the e-commerce space because I think, competition is always good for the consumer, always good. But I don't know where it's going to go. I don't know what AI is going to do to all that. Hey, and then some other good news for your personal finance. I didn't know if you saw that, but Social Security has reported some unexpected good news. Apparently, the trustee report just out estimates that the program's trust fund will last a little bit longer. Now, it's just a little bit longer, it'll last until 2035, 1 year longer than previous projection. At that point, it would be able to pay out only 83% of scheduled benefits if the government made no changes to the program. So for those of you that are, running off of Social Security, and many of us are, or at least supplemented for joining us.
Well, it was touch and go there for a while, but I'm still going.
I think a lot of us were disappointed to see that the IP reform is back in conference, and I think many have declared it dead. Can you explain a little bit about what that means after you explain what in the heck happened that we couldn't get it across the finish line aside from that?
Well, if people have listened to me, in some of the interviews we've had, number one, the Freedom Caucus is a very disruptive force in the Senate. And I know there are some people who think, well, it needs to be disrupted and everything needs to be different. But the reality is, you can have 34 different opinions. You have 34 different people, all of whom have equal power. And when many of them who are outside that caucus have had their legislation of various forms over the years killed by this group, it results in an environment which is difficult, to put it mildly. So the bill that we sent to the House for reform, you have to get a majority vote when it's put on the ballot, and you also have to get a majority in 5 of 8 congressional districts. The thought being that Missouri is a conservative state. We have a big majority of Republicans in the legislature, and we will not do such things as Medicaid expansion, recreational marijuana, things that we feel result in bad outcomes for Missouri. So people turn around a progressive interest, and I'm talking Soros types with millions of dollars come in, gather signatures on petitions, and get something on the ballot. And they've managed to pass such things as Medicaid expansion and recreational marijuana. Our solution was we need to give more weight to rural areas. Now, people can say, well, that's not fair, but if you look at the Electoral College, it's the very same model. I mean, if we wanted New York and California to tell Missouri how to live, we wouldn't have the Electoral College. But that's what defends us against that ideology. So it's the same model. So we sent the bill to the House a long time ago, and we got it back about 2 weeks ago, right at the time that we also had the budget and FRA battle looming. And this is what the first 40-hour filibuster was about. The Freedom Caucus wanted me to take up IP reform ahead of the budget and the FRA, and I refused to do it because the budget has a constitutional deadline, and we would be risking not meeting that. Ultimately, I didn't give in on that. We did the budget and the FRA, and then we brought up initiative petition reform. When we sent the bill to the House, while it had an increased threshold for what it would take to pass a ballot measure, it came back with that increased threshold for citizen petitions, which are actually really mostly not citizen-led. It also increased the threshold for any legislative measure that gets on the ballot. And predictably, more than a few senators think that's not right. They feel, and I'm in that camp, that if we have an issue and we manage to get it through the legislature, it has endured a lot of vetting, open public comment, both sides of the aisle weighing in. The bottom line being, it's very difficult. So we feel, number one, we are elected to represent people and their interests. Number two, anything that gets through has had rigorous debate and vetting. So we're set up with what came back from the House needing to be changed. Democrats, of course, and we knew this would happen, filibustered. And in order to break that filibuster, you have to have 18 votes. And we got 16. And there's a lot of reasons for that. One of them being in order for our chamber to function, we have to have a majority of votes. And during a lot of these filibusters that we've endured by a small group of people, like 6 people, the Democrats have helped us with quorum calls and some of the things that you have to endure. So keeping at least cordial relationships with everyone in there helps you to get things done. If you don't have those relationships, and I would point at the Freedom Caucus, your chances of ever getting anything through there are basically zero. So to sum it up, we got a bill back late. We felt it needed changed. We have all these different factions fighting, and so it sets up an environment where it's just nearly impossible to get done.
That's Senator Cindy O'Loughlin, the majority floor leader in the Missouri Senate, joining us here in Wake Up Mid-Missouri.
Senator, in the midst of this, not surprisingly, we heard from your good buddy, Bill Eigel, who said things are pretty much done over there. Other bills waiting in the pipeline, not going to get to. What do you think? Can you get to it in the couple of days you have left or not?
Well, we could if he would sit down and the members in his group, which is getting smaller. People kind of see the writing on the wall, but, what will happen is more than likely they'll get up and start delaying things. And so, my thought is not much more is going to come through there, if anything.
Senator Cindy O'Loughlin is our guest. She's the Senate Majority Leader from Shelvina. I'd point out quickly, Senator, that you are absolutely correct about medical marijuana and Medicaid expansion, and also the issue of marijuana. They passed statewide, but if you look at the number of counties, it was just a handful of counties that passed them, but they were enough to do it. However, if you look at right to work, and granted that was a referendum, that passed even in the right to work repeal essentially passed in each virtually all over the state, as did minimum wage. So I've seen it in both cases, but you're absolutely right about Medicaid expansion and marijuana. With this, 5 of the 8 congressional districts, it would not have passed. I think we should certainly point that out. Clock is the biggest factor right now. Mandatory adjournment is tomorrow at 6. What happens today? What do you see happening today in your chamber?
Well, I think the initiative petition bill that has now been sent to conference, in all reality, is dead for this year.
You're saying you're saying IP reform is dead. Am I hearing that right?
I am saying that. I'm saying it is dead for this year. And I think I would point out to people, there's a lot of outside groups weighing in. Abortion is a big topic because, now I think they have qualified for the ballot, reversing the ban on abortion. The gun issue, of which, there's no one trying to restrict gun rights, but one of the groups that supports gun rights, and we do too, but basically has put out information saying if we didn't pass this, you're going to lose your gun rights. Well, that's not even remotely true. So it's almost like being in a building that's on fire, and the pandemonium that results is incredible. So, we have bills teed up, ready to go. Can they go through? I don't know. We have such disruptive forces in the Senate, which thankfully will be terming out this year. I think everyone is looking forward to next year.
Well, let's talk about that. I think that all of us would have liked to have seen, well, I'll speak for myself. I'd like to hear what you have to say, Cindy. What about more aggressive education choice? What about heading towards the direction of Arizona and Iowa with regard to that matter, to the regard to taxation? We were in Tennessee over the weekend. Wow, without an income tax, that state is soaring. Do you think without all the infighting, we can get more of these truly conservative, deeply conservative, and empirically better for a state things done?
Well, I absolutely do. But I would point out that just last year we did implement a tax cut And we also, this year, passed increased education choice through education savings accounts, and we increased that to cover the entire state of Missouri.
Yeah.
So while it probably seems, because people focus on all the hubbub, maybe that nothing is getting done, there's actually things getting done that do have impact on everyday lives of Missourians.
Yeah. No, I agree. And I think, boy, would we love to see with the miserable performance of so many schools, including the Columbia Public School District and others, I think folks would like to eventually have, and I'd like to know your opinion on just how do you stand about vouchers? Just, give everyone $85, $65, $75, $8,000 and let them choose where they want to go.
I'm totally in agreement. I mean, the public school system in many ways has been taken over by progressive interest. And I've warned about this for 10 or 15 years.
Getting a lot of folks saying, hey, better push back a little bit here. Where's the Freedom Caucus voice? Well, I'll remind you, we have Freedom Caucus people on. We have Cindy on. We try to get all sides on. And Bill Eigel's on with Gary Nolan, who follows this show very, very often. Joining us now in studio is Phil Stiles with J.C. Parks Recreation. How you doing, Phil?
I'm doing great.
So I don't know if we're ever going to get out and swim and if the rain doesn't stop, but when does that start this year?
Yeah, the weather doesn't look too promising for this weekend, but next weekend the pools will be open on Saturday, May 25th. So we're looking forward to that.
Phil, talk to us about the amphitheater here with the MU Health Amphitheater is what it's now called with the renaming and all. Talk to us about music shows coming up.
Yeah, the MU Healthcare Capital Region Amphitheater is located in Ellis Porter Riverside Park. Our first show of the season was held last Friday, and it was Get the Lead Out. It was a Led Zeppelin tribute band, and it was a great show. Our next show coming up is Chris Jansen on May 26th, so Memorial Day weekend, Sunday night show. If you've never seen Chris Jansen perform, he puts on a great show, and he is a Missouri boy, so you can come out and support him.
What a neat facility that is, and what a long time coming for the capital city.
Yeah, it really is a nice facility. This is the fourth year in operation, and it replaced a very outdated amphitheater that was at the park, and this has really been a great addition to mid-Missouri.
And we should remind folks that if you want to stay in touch with all of the great events going on in and around Jefferson City, jcparks.com. jcparks.com is the website. Tell us about educational things. I mean, there's a lot of people that I think would like to learn and maybe have an opportunity to. You do some of that too, don't you?
We do. We have a big kickoff summer event that we call Kids Fest. We've been doing this for, almost 40 years now. And it's a day that we bring all sorts of businesses and organizations together that are kid-friendly, family-friendly, and they set up booths at Ellis Porter Riverside Park, and people can come and visit them and learn about what they have to offer to the community. Kids Fest is Saturday, June 1st. Again, Ellis Porter Riverside Park from 10 a.m. to 2 p.m. All activities are free. There will be some food trucks if you want to enjoy some of that.
Yeah,
Talk to us about summer camps.
Oh, yeah.
Summer camps are gearing up. They will kick off the season the first week of June. We have 8 different summer camps that kids can attend, and it's just something for everyone. There's all sorts of activities that the camps do, and it's a great activity for kids to participate in.
Now, Phil Stiles joins us with JC Parks at jcparks.com. I was on the events page, and John and I were talking off air, and he was wondering if he could come down on the Kids Fishing Derby Day on June 8th and teach kids how to chum for fish. Can John come down and instruct them on that day and how to do that?
If he wants.
If they don't want to catch anything.
Yeah. So the Kids Fishing Derby, we've been hosting this event with the local Elks Club for many years. It's a free day of fishing for kids. That is Saturday, June 8th. The fishing derby begins at 8 o'clock in the morning and just runs for an hour, so it's a quick event.
Wow.
But it's free, open to the kids up to age 16, and prizes will be awarded to the most fish caught, the smallest fish, and the largest fish.
Pretty cool.
Yeah.
That time of the year, Parks and Rec kicking into high speed for the summertime all across Jefferson City.
You bet.
All right. Hey, we want to thank you for coming in. We look forward to all the folks enjoying the great activities there. jcparks.com, the website. Boy, there's just a plethora of things to do. And if you can't find something of interest to there, I don't know, you better check your pulse. There's something for everyone there. So I hope that folks will come out and take advantage of all your great programs. Thanks, Phil Stiles. Appreciate it.
Thank you all.
All right, and we'll talk to Phil next month and catch up on that. Hey, thanks for being with us this morning. Donald Trump is now back in the courtroom. I guess the counselors were at the judge's bench, so we're getting a little blow-by-blow description. Here's what's going on. We'll catch up on what happened tomorrow. And it is Feel Good Friday. Make sure you wear your red. And we'll have a couple of young conservatives in with us tomorrow to join in the fun. And we'll talk about a great military